Hello, everyone. In this video, I will give a guide and tips for chapter 12 of my Java book. Chapter 12 is on exception handling and text I/O. The first part of this chapter, we will introduce exception handling, and the second part is on text I/O. Exception handling enables you to write a program that will handle the exception. That's some kind of error in the program, the runtime errors. And the program can continue or exit gracefully. So let's look at this now. The first thing is this introduction, and gives the motivation and overview for this chapter. And this second section is exception handling overview. See how exception handling is done and is involved. And so using 4 examples to demonstrate the need for exception handling and the benefits for exception handling and the coding structure for exception handling. So this is the section 12.2. And this section 12.3 introduces the exception types. So these are the classes defined in the Java API, and this representing exceptions and all types of exceptions. So, and you can see that exception, the root class for exception is throwable, and it's divided into 2 types, error and exception. So the errors are system related, like memory issue and the some linking issue. So all those can be detected, can be handled, but after you process it, and the program needs to be stopped because it cannot go forward without the enough system resource. So this exception, so all of this that can be handled and processed, and the program can continue to execute. So among this and the exception, there's 2 types of exceptions, checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. And checked exceptions is that you must deal with it, and you have to declare it if you threw it. And unchecked exception, so those are some kind of coding errors, and they could happen anywhere in the program, and you can process it, but you don't need to really declare it. And the next section is on declaring, throwing, and catching exception. So this is on the structure, the coding structure for the exception handling. So we can use try and catch. So first is when you declare a method, and inside the method, your code method exception, and you may declare this if it's unchecked exception. If it's checked exception, you have to declare it. So this is the declaring. Throwing is to actually throw the exception. In some situation, your code can throw exception. And this is using the catches, to use the try catch to catch the exception. So here, look, this is try catch, and invoke this method exception. And this is the condition, and you're going to throw exception. Exception is an object. So it's a new, some kind of exception object is created, and it's thrown. All right, so here's declaring exception, and this is through exception, and this is catching exception using try catch. You can get the information from the exception. Exception object contains the relevant information that describes the exception. So this, you can get the message for the exception, and here is toString, and this is the so here is so print trace, stack trace. Now, this subsection gives the example for declaring exception, throwing exception, and a catching exception. Now, let's look at this finally clause. You can have a finally clause in the try catch, and then finally. So this is something you have exception and you catch it, you still need to go to finally. Even though you don't have exception, you still have to go to finally. So this is finally, it has to be executed and in any case. So this is finally here. And all right, when to use exceptions? If this is something, it's some coding errors you have to check. Like you want to check if a reference variable is not null, you better write it using if statement to check it, and instead of using try catch. Try catch is for something really unexpected. So if you expect something to happen, and you can check it in the code. And also try catch is normally the exception is normally when you write a method, there's some situation like a file not found, it's beyond your control, the network issue. So this kind of things, you cannot write it code in your method. You have to throw it and let the caller deal with it. So things you can handle in your code and you process it. And if you cannot handle it, you throw it. So that kind of situation, you write the exceptions. You can read through exception. So here is you catch it, and in your code, you catch it, you deal with it. But you want to call the caller to be notified so you can continue to throw it out. And here's a chain exception. You can have chain exception is this is yeah. So the you have this the through exception and you catch it, you're gonna throw another exception. So you chain this in the so this exception here and creating another exception and the chain it to throw it out. So this is called a chain, creating a new exception object and with the existing exception as part of it. So this is chained exception. You can define your custom exception classes. Java API has a lot of exception classes already defined in the API, and sometimes, so there's not enough to describe your exception. You can define a custom exception class. So when you define your custom exception class, you need to make this your custom exception class as a subtype of exception. So now let's look at text IO. So the key class is the file class. The file class is to describe the property of the file. So look, this is a file. It's actually also a directory, can be so considered as an instance of this file class. So there's a method here, and to test whether this object is a file or is a directory. So this is all for the file properties, where the file exists, where the file can be read or can write it. So those are the things here for the file. It's not for reading data from the file or write data into the file. So this is only regarding the file property. So all right, so here, this is a test program to use the file class to create a file object and to use the the method to get the file property. Here's the file exists. So this is the one here, and whether it exists or not. All right, and now let's go to look at the actually how you're going to read data and write data into the file. So this is, you're going to use the first, let's see how you write data. Use print writer. So use this print writer class. You create a print writer object for writing data to the file. So here's the constructor. You can have a file object, or this is the directly using a string name for the file. So this is we are very familiar with all these methods, print line, so all this printf, they can also be used. So once you have the print writer object, so here's the example here. You create a print write object, so then you can write data to the file. Just remember that you're going to close it to ensure the file is written to the file. All right, so now this is another thing is often you forget to close the file properly. So there's another way to do it, is a better way, is to use the try with resource. So if you use try with resource, and then you don't have to close it when you, so like here, you get a print writer using try with resource, and you can write the data in this try block here, try and get this resource and write it, and the resource is going to be automatically closed. So this is called the closing resource automatically using try with resource. So let's now look at how you read it. So read it using scanner. So we already use scanner to read the input from the keyboard. Now we use the scanner to read it from a file. So this is they're using scanner, and to get this, just be careful that this is the constructor you're going to use, the scanner for file. If you use scanner with a string, you actually scan it from a string. You're going to read it from the string. So this is string itself. You're going to read the tokens from the string. So here, when you read from string, you read next or read the entire line. Next line is the line best, and this next is the token best. Don't mix them in your code. Say this is the only line best is next line. All the others read the next. These are the token best. All right. So here's the example code, and we use this the scanner. So for the file, and then you can read it. Input.next, input.next. Remember, you're going to close it. But if you use, this is the try with resource, and then you can do it. This is automatically closing, and without you explicitly use the invoke the close method. So you can look at the entire code from this link right here to use the read data with AutoClose. All right, so read this section. It really explains to you why don't mix the token best input with line best input. So here's the example replacing text. So you read data from a file and replace some data in the file, write the data back to the file. So now this section here shows you how to read data from the web using a URL. So this is very useful, and from web resource. And this is a case study on a project. It's a web crawler. So you can go through, given one starting URL, you can go all the way and to other pages automatically to find to discover information on the web. So this is the web crawler. All right, that is all for this chapter on exception handling and text IO. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.